Hello everybody. Do you remember what happened to Veruca Salt? That's right. She went down the rubbish chute. I wonder if they can save her. Well, let's find out. I've never seen anything like it, said Mr. Wonka. The children are disappearing like rabbits. But you mustn't worry about it. They'll all come out in the wash. Mr. Wonka looked at the little group that stood beside him in the corridor. There were only two left now, Mike TV and Charlie Bucket, and there were 3 grown-ups. Shall we move on, Mr. Wonka asked. Oh yes, said Charlie. My feet are getting tired, said Mike TV. I want to watch television. If you're tired, we'd better take the lift, said Mr. Wonka. It's over here, come on, in we go. Now then, which button shall we press first? Take your pick. Charlie Bucket stared around him in astonishment. It was the craziest lift he had ever seen. There were buttons everywhere. Quickly, Charlie started reading some of the labels. The rock candy mine, coconut ice skating rink, strawberry juice, water pistols, toffee apple trees for planting out in your garden, exploding sweets for your enemies, cavity-filling caramels, no more dentists, wriggle sweets that wriggle delightfully in your tummy after swallowing, invisible chocolate bars for eating in class, sugar-coated pencils for sucking, fizzy lemonade swimming pools, rainbow drops. Suck them, and you can spit in 6 different colors. Come on, said Mr. Wonka. We can't wait all day. Isn't there a television room, said Mr. Mike TV. Certainly there's a television room. That button over there. Everybody looked. Television chocolate, it said. Whoopee, said Mike TV. That's for me. He stuck out his thumb and pressed the button. Instantly, there was a tremendous whizzing noise. The doors clanked shut and the lift leaped away as though it had been stung by a wasp. But it leapt sideways. All the passengers were flung off their feet onto the floor. Get up, said Mr. Wonka, roaring with laughter. Help, shouted Mrs. TV. Take my hand, madam, said Mr. Wonka gallantly. There you are, now grab the strap. Everybody grab a strap. The journey's not over yet. The lift rushed on at the speed of the rocket. Now it was beginning to climb. Then suddenly it dropped like a stone, and Charlie felt his tummy coming right into his throat. Mrs. TV cried, The rope is broken, we're going to crash. I love it, said Charlie. It's like being on a roller coaster. And through the glass walls of the lift, they caught sudden glimpses of strange and wonderful things going on in some of the other rooms. A machine with white powder spraying out of it, a lake of hot caramel with steam coming off it, a village of Oompa Loompas with tiny houses and streets and hundreds of Oompa Loompa children. And now the lift began flattening out again, but it was going faster than ever. I'm going to be sick, yelled Mrs. TV. Please don't be sick, said Mr. Wonka. Try and stop me, said Mrs. TV. Make this thing stop. Can't do that, said Mr. Wonka. It won't stop till we get there. I only hope no one's using the other lift at this moment. What other lift, said Mrs. TV. The one that goes the opposite way on the same track as this one. Holy mackerel, you mean we can crash? I've always been lucky so far, said Mr. Wonka. Now I am going to be sick, said Mrs. TV. Oh no, not now, we're nearly there. The next moment there was a screaming of brakes and the lift began to slow down. Never again, said Mrs. TV. Just a minute, said Mr. Wonka, listen to me. I want everybody to be very careful in this room. There is dangerous stuff around in here, and you must not tamper with it. The TV family, together with Charlie and Grandpa Joe, stepped out of the lift into a room that was so bright that they screwed up their eyes in pain. Mr. Wonka handed them each a pair of dark glasses. Put these on quick and don't take them off. As soon as Charlie had his glasses, he was able to look around him in comfort. He saw a long, narrow room. The room was bare except at the far ends. At one of these ends there was an enormous camera on wheels with a whole army of Oompa Loompas. The Oompa Loompas were dressed in an extraordinary way. They were wearing bright red spacesuits, complete with helmets and goggles, and they were working in silence. At the other end of the room, about 50 paces away from the camera, a single Oompa Loompa, also wearing a spacesuit, was sitting at a black table, gazing at the screen of a very large television. Here we go, said Mr. Wonka. This is the testing room for my latest and greatest invention, television chocolate. But what is television chocolate? Asked Mike TV. Good heavens, child, stop interrupting me, said Mr. Wonka. It works by television. I don't like television. Children want to sit there all day long staring at the screen. That's me, said Mike TV. Shut up, said Mr. TV. Thank you, said Mr. Wonka. I shall now tell you how this amazing television set of mine works. But do you know how an ordinary television works? It's very simple. At one end, where the picture's been taken, you have a large camera and you start photographing something. The photographs are then split up into millions of tiny little pieces that you can't see, and they're shot out into the sky by electricity. In the sky, they go by whizzing around all over the place until they hit the antenna on the roof of somebody's house. Then they go flashing down the wire that leads to the back of the television set. And there they get jiggled and joggled until at last every single one of these millions of tiny pieces is fitted back into the right place. That isn't exactly how it works, said Mike TV. You're a nice boy, Mr. Wonka said, but you talk too much. Now then, the very first time I saw how an ordinary television works, I was struck by a tremendous idea. If these people can break up a photograph into millions of pieces, why can't I send a real bar of chocolate whizzing through the air in tiny pieces and then put the pieces together at the other end, all ready to be eaten? Impossible, said Mike TV. You think so? Cried Mr. Wonka. Well, watch this. Bring in the chocolate. Immediately 6 Oompa Loompas marched forward, carrying on their shoulders the most enormous bar of chocolate Charlie had ever seen. It was about the size of the mattress he slept on at home. It has to be big, Mr. Wonka explained, because whenever you send something by television, it always comes out smaller than it was when it went in. Here we go. There, Mike TV, stand back, you too close. There are dangerous rays. That's why the Oompa Loompas are wearing spacesuits. One of the Oompa Loompas caught hold of a large switch and pulled it down. There was a blinding flash. The chocolate's gone, shouted Grandpa Joe. He was quite right. It had disappeared into thin air. It's on its way. It's rushing through the air above our heads in a million tiny pieces. Quick, come over here. He dashed over to the other end of the room, where the large television set was standing. Watch the screen. Here it comes. Look! The screen flickered and lit up. Then suddenly a small bar of chocolate appeared in the middle of the screen. Take it, shouted Mr. Wonka, growing more and more excited. How can you take it? It's just a picture. Charlie Bucket, you take it, said Mr. Wonka. Reach out and grab it. Charlie put out his hand and touched the screen, and suddenly, miraculously, the bar of chocolate came away in his fingers. Eat it, go on, eat it. It'll be delicious. It's the same bar. It's got smaller on the journey, that's all. It's fantastic, gasped Grandpa Joe. It's a miracle. Just imagine, cried Mr. Wonka, when I start using this across the country. A voice will say, eat Wonka's chocolates. They're the best in the world. If you don't believe us, try one for yourself now. And you simply reach out and take one. How about that, huh? Terrific, cried Grandpa Joe. It'll change the world. Mike TV was even more excited than Grandpa Joe. But Mr. Wonka, can you send other things in the air? Breakfast cereal, for instance? Oh, my sainted aunt, said Mr. Wonka. Don't mention that disgusting stuff in front of me. Do you know what breakfast cereal is made of? It's made of all those little curly wooden shavings you find in pencil sharpeners. But could you send it by television? Asked Mike TV. Of course. What about people? Asked Mike TV. A person? Are you off your rocker? But could it be done? Good heavens, child, I really don't know. I suppose it could. I wouldn't like to take the risk. It could have some nasty results. But Mike TV was already off and running the moment he heard Mr. Wonka say, I'm pretty sure it could. Look at me, he shouted. I'm going to be the first person in the world to be sent by television. No, cried Mr. Wonka. Mike, screamed Mrs. TV. Stop, come back. You'll be turned into a million tiny pieces. But there was no stopping Mike. See you later, alligator, he shouted. And he pulled down the switch, and as he did so, he leaped out into the full glare of the mighty lens. There was a blinding flash. Then there was silence. Mrs. TV ran forward, and she stood there. He's gone. He's gone! Great heavens, he has gone, shouted Mr. TV. Mr. Wonka hurried forward and placed a hand on Mrs. TV's shoulder. "We shall have to hope for the best. We must pray that your little boy will come out unharmed at the other end." "Mike, where are you?" "I'll tell you where he is," said Mr. TV. "He's whizzing around above our heads in a million tiny pieces." "We must watch the television set," said Mr. Wonka. "He may come through any moment." They all gathered round and stared tensely at the screen. "He's taking a long time. Oh dear, said Mr. Wonka. "I do hope no parts of him get left behind." "What on earth do you mean?" "I don't wish to alarm you," said Mr. Wonka, "but sometimes only half the pieces find their way into their television set. I don't know why." "You mean only half of Mike is coming back?" Mrs. TV let out a scream of horror. "Let's hope it's the top half," said Mr. TV. "Hold everything. Watch the screen. Something's happening." The screen began to flicker. Some wavy lines appeared. Slowly, the screen began to get brighter and brighter. "Here he comes," yelled Mr. Wonka. "Yes, that's him." "Is he all in one piece?" asked Mrs. TV. "I'm not sure. It's too early to tell." Faintly, but becoming clearer and clearer, the picture of Mike TV appeared on the screen. He was standing up and waving at the audience and grinning from ear to ear. "But he's a dwarf! A midget!" shouted Mr. TV. "Mike, are you all right? Isn't he going to get any bigger?" "Hi, Pop. Hi, Mom. Look at me. I'm the first person ever to be sent by television." A tiny little voice came out of his mouth, no louder than the squeaking of a mouse. "Grab him, quick," said Mr. Wonka. "Hooray! He's all in one piece. He's completely unharmed." "You call that unharmed?" snapped Mrs. TV, peering at the little speck of a boy who was running up and down the palm of her hand. He was not even a centimetre tall. He shrunk. "Of course he shrunk," said Mr. Wonka. "What did you expect?" "What are we going to do?" said Mrs. TV. "We can't send him back to school like this. He'll get stood on. He'll be squashed." "Oh, he won't be able to do anything," said Mrs. TV. "Oh, yes," said Mike TV. "I'll still be able to watch TV." "Never again. I'm throwing the television out the window the moment we get home," said his dad. When he heard this, Mike threw a terrible tantrum. "I want to watch TV," he squeaked. "I want to watch television. I want to watch television." "Mr. Wonka, how can we make him grow?" "Well," said Mr. Wonka, "that's a bit tricky. We'll have to put him in a special machine I have for testing the stretchiness of chewing gum. Maybe that will bring him back to what he was." "Oh, thank you," said Mrs. TV. "How far do you think he'll stretch?" "Maybe miles," said Mr. Wonka. "Who knows? But he's going to be awfully thin." "You mean like chewing gum?" "Exactly." "How thin will he be?" "I haven't the foggiest idea," said Mr. Wonka. "All we'll have to do is give him a triple overdose of my wonderful super vitamin chocolate. Contains huge amount of vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin I, vitamin J, vitamin K, vitamin L, vitamin T, vitamin E, vitamin X, and believe it or not, vitamin Z. The only two vitamins it doesn't have is vitamin S, because it makes you sick, and vitamin H, because it makes you grow horns on the top of your head. But it does have a very small amount of the rarest and most magical vitamin of all, vitamin Wonka. And what will that do to him? It'll make his toes grow out until they're as long as his fingers." "Don't be silly. It's quite useful," said Mr. Wonka. "He'll be able to play the piano with his feet." "But Mr. Wonka—" "No arguments, please." He turned away, clicked his fingers, and Oompa Loompa appeared immediately. "Follow these orders," said Mr. Wonka, handing the Oompa Loompa a piece of paper on which he had written full instructions. "Off you go. Goodbye, Mr. TV. Goodbye, Mrs. TV. And please don't look so worried. They'll come out in the wash, you know, every one of them." At the end of the room, the Oompa Loompas around the giant camera were already beating their tiny drums. "Ah, there they go again," said Mr. Wonka. "I'm afraid you just can't stop them singing." The most important thing we've learned, so far as children are concerned, is never, never, never let them near your television set. Or better still, just don't install the idiotic thing at all. In almost every house we've been, we've watched them gaping at the screen. Oh yes, we know it keeps them still, They don't climb out the windowsill. They never fight or kick or punch. They leave you free to cook the lunch and wash the dishes in the sink. But did you ever stop to think? To wonder just exactly what this does to your beloved tot? It rots the senses in their head. It kills imagination dead. It clogs and clutters up the mind. It makes a child so dull and blind. He can no longer understand a fantasy, a fairyland. His brain becomes as soft as cheese. His powers of thinking rust and freeze. He cannot think. He only sees. And once they start, oh boy, you watch the reading slowly growing joy that fills their hearts. They'll grow so keen, they'll wonder what they've ever seen in that ridiculous machine, that nauseating, foul, unclean, repulsive television screen. And later each and every kid will love you more for what you did. P.S. Regarding Mike TV, we very much regret that we shall simply have to wait and see if we can get him back his height. But if we can't, it serves him right. Goodness me! So now we have the little midget Mike. I wonder if they'll get him back to his normal size. We'll see tomorrow. Tuck yourself in nice and tight, snug as a bug. Sleep tight.